Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. So in today's video we're going to do the sewing part of this blouse. If you missed the last video where we drafted this a while back, I'm going to have it linked up here so you can go check it out. I also have it linked in the description box in case you missed it. So without further ado, let us get right into it. So guys, these are all our fabric pieces. I've gone ahead to iron interfacing on the main fabric piece, and then I ironed gum stay to the lining piece. So these are all the fabric pieces we're going to work with. I'm going to set the back pieces aside so we can work on the front piece. So for the front piece, I'm going to take out the lining piece of the front piece and we're going to work on the main fabric piece. But you want to remember that whatever we're doing for the main fabric piece, we're doing for the lining piece. The only difference is we're not going to have a padding for the lining piece, but we're going to have padding for the main fabric piece. So now I'm just aligning everything so that everything is in place for us to start sewing. So now I'm cutting out the breast pad and I'm just going to place the front piece on the wadding, and I'm going to go ahead now to just cut this out. And you want to cut this not full scale but like half scaled.
So I'm just trimming out the excess we have at that point, and then now we're going to go ahead to cut out the wadding for the sides of our blouse as well. So I'm placing this on fold so we cut out the two pieces we need for both sides of our bustier. After cutting this out, this is what we have. I went ahead to stitch them down in place to secure everything for us to start sewing. Now I'm just placing my fabrics together, right sides facing each other. We're going to start off by pinning them down, making sure everything is aligning properly. So we're going to pin this all the way down from the under bust down and then all the way to the top as well. So after pinning this down, this is what we have. We want to go ahead now to take this to the machine to sew.
We're also going to do the same thing for the opposite side as well as all the lining pieces. So this is what we have after sewing. You can see what the bust area is looking like. So we're going to go ahead now to give this a good press and then come back to finish up. So this is what we have after ironing, and the wadding I used for this is the soft one. I didn't make use of the strong one simply because I do not want this to be too hard on the bust area. Now I'm bringing in the lining piece. We've gone ahead to iron out the lining piece. We just did the same thing we did for the main fabric piece, and I have it placed right sides facing each other so we can close this up. So I'm going to hold the neckline areas together, and I'm going to use my pin to secure it in place for us to sew. So now we're going to go ahead to sew the neckline area all the way to the other side, and then we're going to press it down and set it aside to work on the back piece. So guys, this is the back piece. We're going to join these two pieces together, and on this part here we're going to have our loops. If you missed the last video where we drafted this, I'm going to link it up here. So now to do this, we're going to hold these two pieces together and we're going to pin it down. So I'm just going to pin this down to secure it in place to sew. Now we're going to sew along this part by 1/2 inch all the way up. I'm going to do that now and give it a good press and then come back to show you what next to do. So this is what we have after giving it a good press. This is our back piece. I also did the same thing for the lining piece, and I cut out fabric straps like this. I did this unbiased to make sure it comes out really nice. So this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead now to cut them into tiny straps for our loops. So I'm going to go ahead now to cut them into all the pieces I'll need, and then we're going to start attaching them to the loop area. You can make use of actual bias tapes, the one you get in the store, but I could not find a matching bias that would match this particular fabric, so I had to make use of the fabric itself. So I've gone ahead now to cut them out, and we're going to go ahead to start attaching them to the sides.
After pinning this down, you want to go ahead to stitch it in place, and then we're also going to do the same thing for the opposite side as well.
And you want to have the opposite side close by when doing this, so that they are at the same level and everything is aligning properly. So after doing so, this is what we have. I've gone ahead to stitch both sides down to secure them in place, and I took out the pins. Now I'm bringing in the lining piece for this part here, and we're placing them right sides facing each other, and we're going to stitch along this part and then take it all the way down. So you want to flip this over to the other side and sew it from that part, so you use the stitch you've already made as a guide to do so. So I've gone ahead to sew this, and this is what we have. You can see that I only did the sewing on this part here, and now I'm just trimming off the excesses we have on that point there. Now I'm going to flip this over to the right side, and after doing so, you can see what the loops are looking like. So this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead now to work on the opposite side as well. So now I want to do the same thing for this part. I'm bringing in the lining piece, and I'm going to place them right sides facing each other. And on this part where we have the loops, we're going to stitch it down. That is the only part we're going to stitch. We're going to leave this part open simply because we're going to have a cape at that part. If you've seen the inspo we're trying to recreate, there's a cape at that point. So we're only going to stitch down the loop area and leave that part open. So this is what we have. I've gone ahead to iron everything out, and this part here, you can see that I went ahead to stitch it down simply because we're going to have a cape on that part, like I said. So now we want to create the cape. I'm placing my tape down on this point to see what we have, and what we have there is about 7 inches. We're going to place the tape here, and what I have here is 10 inches for the length of my cape. I'm okay with 10 inches, so that's what I'm using. Now I'm bringing in an extra piece of fabric to draft this out. So on this part here, I'm marking 10 inches. So I'm going to go ahead now to mark 10 inches, and we're going to rule a straight line across. So now I'm going to mark the width of the cape, and to do that I'm going to place my tape on the shoulder area. We're going to take out 1/2 inch for the joining of our sleeve, so you want to take note of that. So I'm going to work with 3.5 inches. So I'm going to take that now, and I'm marking this on this point here. I'm going to mark 3.5 inches all the way to the bottom part, and then we're going to rule another straight line. Now after rolling out that line, I'm going to take note of the 7.5 inch we took at that area. I'm marking 8 inches simply because we're going to sew this, and then when we're done, we're going to have that 7.5 inches. After doing so, I rolled a slanted line, as you can see, and now we're just cutting this out. We're going to have 2 pieces of this fabric. One is going to serve as the main fabric piece and the other as the lining piece. So I placed this down on this point here, and I was okay with what I have. So I'm just going to go ahead to finish this up. So these are the 2 pieces of our cape fabric, and I went ahead to iron 1 layer of air stay interfacing on both sides. Now we're going to stitch along the sides and then flip it over to the right side and just give everything a good press. I'm done ironing this, and this is what we have. You can see how nicely sewn this is looking. We want to go ahead to take this to the machine to attach it to our bodice. So to attach this, I'm going to take this and bring in the main bodice. So we're going to sew this on the wrong side of the main bodice. We're going to place the right side on the wrong side of the main bodice. So when we stitch it down and we flip it over, it is going to be on the right side. I hope you understand. So this part we're stitching now that is facing up is the wrong side of our cape. So we're just going to stitch this all the way down. After stitching, you want to do a top stitch to secure this in place and to make sure that your cape is going to lay very well when you're done sewing. So I'm going to trim out the excess and I'm going to top stitch. So now this part we are top stitching on is the wrong side of our main bodice. So we're going to top stitch on the wrong side of the main bodice and we're done attaching the cape or collar, whichever you want to call it. We're going to top stitch and then everything is going to stay in place, and that is it for the cape. After sewing, this is what the cape is looking like. Now we want to go ahead to create our boning channels, because we're going to have bonings at the side of this loop here, just to hold that part very well, to make it have structure. So I'm just sewing the boning channel for this part. I'm also going to do it for the same thing for the opposite side as well. So this is what we have after sewing. You can see that I've gone ahead to create the boning channels for this part here as well. Now we want to join this by the shoulders. So we're joining the front and the back pieces together by the shoulder. I'm going to bring in the front piece for us to start joining. So I place them together, right sides facing each other, and I'm just going to align everything together before we start joining. So you want to make sure you hold everything in place, and then we're going to start joining by the shoulder here. We want to go ahead to hold them together and open this up. You're sandwiching the back piece in between the front piece and you sew by 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead now to do that for both sides. You want to take note of the cape we have on this point and sew this very well so it stays in place. I'm going to do that now for both sides and come back to show you. After joining both shoulder areas, this is what we have. Now we want to go ahead to cut out the basque shape for the front piece, because we did the back while drafting the back, but we didn't do the same for the front. So now we want to go ahead to create the shape we want at this lower part here. So I'm going to take my tape and my chalk and we're going to mark at the sides of the blouse. We're going to go up by 3 inches and we're going to mark it out. So I'm doing that for this part here, and I'm going to do the same thing for the opposite side as well. So I'm marking that out and then we're going to curve this in. After marking that out, we're going to go ahead to cut it out. Next, we want to go ahead to join the front and the back pieces together. And to do this, we're going to start off with our main fabric pieces. So we're going to hold our main fabric pieces together and we're going to pin them down. So I've gone ahead to mark out my body measurement divided by 2 already. And I'm going to pin the front piece and the back pieces together. The front piece of the main fabric piece and the back piece of the main fabric piece. We're holding them together and we're going to pin them by the sides. So you want to pay attention because the same thing I'm doing here, I'm also going to repeat for the opposite side. So after pinning down the main fabric pieces, I'm going to hold the lining pieces together. So you want to hold the lining piece for the front and the back together. And I'm going to pin them together the same way I did for the main fabric pieces. So I'm going to pin them to secure them in place from the top to the bottom before we start sewing. So I'm done pinning this down and we want to go ahead to sew. We're going to follow the markings we made and we're going to stitch this. We're stitching them separately. We're stitching the lining pieces separately and we're stitching the main fabric pieces separately. So I'm going to take this now to sew and come back to show you. So after doing so, this is what we have. I've gone ahead to sew them by the sides and I took out the pins. Now I'm just trimming out the excess fabric we have on the lining piece as well as the main fabric piece. So we're done joining them by the sides. Now we want to open up the seams for all the sides, the lining piece and the main fabric piece, and we want to give it a good press. So I'm going to press this and then we're going to come back to continue finishing up this top. So far, this is what our top is looking like. This is what the front is looking like. And this is what the back piece is looking like. Now we want to go ahead to start fixing in our bonings into the boning channels. I've already gone ahead to cut out the bonings. I'm just going to insert them now. So we're going to carve out that shape at the bottom part here. I didn't do that earlier. On this side here, I'm just going to carve it out. I'm not trying to do exactly what we have on the picture. I'm just trying to carve it out the way I want mine to turn out. So I'm just going to carve this out and then trim out the excess to create that shape at the front. So after carving this out, we're going to go ahead to just cut it out. So after cutting that out, we want to go ahead to seal up the edges. We're going to go ahead to use our fabric to seal up the edges, and I cut out these fabric straps on bias so it comes out really well and doesn't give me stress while sewing this. So you want to make sure you're cutting your fabric on bias. So we're going to take this to the machine now to sew. After sewing, I'm trimming out the excesses so when we flip this over to top stitch, that bottom part isn't bulky. So we're done trimming out the excesses there. We're going to go ahead to top stitch on this on the wrong side. So we're just going to top stitch on this all the way to the other side. So this is what we have at the bottom part here. We've gone ahead to cover up the bottom part. Now we want to go ahead to take note of what we have on our armhole area. For your sleeve, you want to place your tape and just take note of what you have there, and that is what you're going to use to draft your sleeve. I've already gone ahead to do so. I'm just going to bring in the sleeve. I went ahead to cut out 2 sleeves, and this is not a full long sleeve, it is a 3/4 sleeve, and I went ahead now to leave a notch so we can fold this in. So what I want to do now is I'm just going to fold this in and then iron it down, and when I iron it down, I'm going to add hemming gum just to secure it in place so it comes out really well, because I do not want to have any sewing lines there.
So after hemming this down, we want to go ahead to use our body measurement to close up the sides of the sleeve. This is what you'll have. You can see that I've already went ahead to do so. I'm going to flip this over to the right side, and we want to go ahead to attach this to our bodies. So I'm going to go ahead now to attach both sleeves to our blouse. Now to attach the sleeve, I'm just going to place this in the armhole area, and I'm going to pin this all the way around. I'm going to use that notch I created at the midpoint of my sleeve, and I'm going to align it with the joining at the shoulder area, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be, and I'm just going to pin this all the way around. After doing so, we want to go ahead to sew this all the way around, and do not forget to overlock any rough edges you might have. So I'm going to go ahead to attach this and come back to show you the final results. So guys, this is the final result. This is what our blouse is looking like before I went ahead to bead around the edges. I also went ahead to attach this cape here just to finish up the look, but on the final result I ended up not wearing the blouse with this cape. I ended up taking it out, but I just added it here just to show you what it would look like. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful in any way, do not forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed already, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.